You're listening to Comic Reflections, episode 34. I'm Nicholas Prom.
I'm Jeff Barnhart.
All
Day
right.
quill free.
Yes, Jeff's not flying high this time. All right. So, opening the show, um, Marvel Tales number 20, one of Marvel Comics' many reprint lines they had. And the lead story, it later became all Spider-Man reprints, but this was an anthology format. It had several stories. The lead story from Amazing Spider-Man number 25, captured by J. Jonah Jameson, written by Stan Lee, art by the inimitable Steve Ditko. Jeff, what do you?
Hurrah! Back to real comics.
oh, I meant to say because Jeff demanded it. This story.
I read there was a sequel to this where J. Jonah Jameson gets another robot with his face on there, and I'm not sure why he has to have his face there. I guess because a robot is boring. There's no expression. So
Well, and Jameson is not boring. He's very expressive. He's one of the most memorable characters in comics. Why not have a robot that's out to have hunt Spider-Man with the face of Jameson?
It's a goofy robot, but it's a cool robot. What it does, but it's goofy as all get out. J. Jonah, the extreme hatred for him to Spider-Man, it's so over the top. It's almost too much. I would like for it to be a little bit of
More subtlety?
More subtle or something, or
if he was more subdued, he'd be Perry White. And I think Marvel wanted to have a newspaper editor, but not be Perry White. They wanted to do something different. Well, yeah.
Okay, so we have Perry White plus Ahab.
Sure.
Captain Ahab from Moby Dick.
Sure. So the basic plot of this scientist comes to Jameson, knows that he hates Spider-Man, and it's like, look, let me demonstrate this robot that I've built. It'll hunt down Spider-Man based on, what was it, like spider vibrations or waves or something goofy.
One thing I noticed, this is how many girls this nerd Peter Parker has.
Well, at this point, Peter is less of a nerd, and he's coming into his own, and yes, he's pursuing or being pursued by Liz Allen, and there's the on again, off again with Betty Brant, and there was the ongoing gag of Peter trying to duck out of being introduced to Aunt May's friend, Anna Watson, her niece, Mary Jane.
Yeah,
and that's all present in this story.
Yeah.
And the rivalry with Flash Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And Flash doesn't like that Liz is paying attention to Peter and wants to fight him. And Peter has to duck out of the fight with Flash to escape the robot. And so he ends up having to look like a coward.
Yeah, good story, good, clever ending. How to get out of this? So how does Spidey get out of this mess? He has a good way of getting it.
Yeah, okay. But I thought it was enjoyable. The scientist who invented the robot, Smythe, who would later return again and again with other robots to destroy Spider-Man. This is not a one-off character, but he appeals to Jameson's ego by allowing him to control the robot, and also his face is appears on the screen of the robot's face as he's seeing through the eyes of the robot, and you see Jameson's expressions, and so he's battling Spider-Man by remote control.
And Peter Parker encourages J. Jonah Jameson to use a robot because he didn't know how good the robot was.
Well, right. He thought, cool, I'll get some pictures, and it's going to be a stupid robot, whatever. But it turns out to be quite formidable, and, Spidey, barely gets out of it. Mm-hmm. He has to employ trickery, but, hey, it's cool. Yeah. Wouldn't expect any less from the webhead.
Mm-hmm. Next one's Grey Gargoyle.
Oh, yes, the backup story. And this is from Journey into Mystery, number 107, When the Grey Gargoyle Strikes. So it's a Thor story, and Stan Lee writing, beautiful art by Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. The Grey Gargoyle, he's this French scientist, a chemist or something, and he accidentally creates this formula that makes
things into stone for an hour.
Yeah.
And then he turns Thor into stone. So how does Thor get out of it? he accidentally falls over. The hammer hits the ground. He turns into
Don Blake,
all right.
the lame physician again,
hmm
and
So Don Blake has got to fake Thor being around, and so he gets chased by the Great Gargoyle and sends him to the ocean, which I thought was a pretty cool.
it was cool. Didn't he borrow that projecting film thing from Tony Stark to as Don Blake? He's running around the city projecting images of Thor battling the Great Gargoyle to trick him, and then sends him into the ocean. I thought it was really cool. He had that 3D projector.
Yeah, and yeah, if something's made out of stone like the Great Gargoyle, it goes in the ocean, it's not going to float.
Well, right, and you can't just pummel him into submission because this is a guy. If he touches you, you turn to stone. So Thor's got to be more clever. I like this story.
Yeah, that too.
I think it's really fun
And he gets Great Gargoyle gets pulled into the ocean. So then he says, "Well, when I turn back human after an hour, I'm not going to have enough air to breathe,
right.
and I'm going to die." Which is kind of, I'm sure we see the Great Gargoyle again.
Oh, he showed up again. I think
I thought that was a good
number of
ending.
times.
Clever writing.
Yeah, and man, Jack Kirby. He would start a lot of the Marvel titles. He would do maybe 8, 10, a dozen issues, and then somebody else would come in and he'd be doing other things. But he stayed on Thor for a long time. That was one of his longer running books. Not as long as he did with, well, maybe as long, but or close to. But his run on the Fantastic Four was over 100 issues straight, and I don't think anything's ever happened before or since.
Wonder why. I mean, what makes him do Thor and not somebody else? Or
I don't know. Maybe because he got to pick and choose.
Or maybe Stanley told him to.
I don't know.
I don't.
I mean, it's only the first 6 or 8 issues of the Avengers, for example, that he did, and he did the covers for a long time after that. But he did I think the first 8, 10 issues of Avengers, and then Don Heck took over. And he did X-Men for 13 issues, and then somebody else came in, and again, I think he still did the covers for a while. I don't know what the probably office politics that played into that, but maybe it's we've got a new thing, we get this established, we had another new idea coming along down the pipeline, let's start that off, get it off Kirby running, because that was their formula. It'd
been nice to have a fly on the wall back then.
Yeah,
one of those things we'd use time travel for.
There are some great very professionally done fan magazines that I read that really give a lot of insight to these kinds of questions. They're all from this. I'm going to plug this because it's great. This company, Tomorrow's Publications, and they put out Alter Ego, which is Gold and Silver Age based, Back Issue, which is Silver and Bronze oriented stuff, and then they've got other ones like the Jack Kirby Collector, which is all devoted to Jack Kirby material and old interviews with Jack Kirby and people reminiscences about him, and they're really, really in-depth, insightful magazines. I enjoy them immensely. They're these great tomes, and I get a lot of my comics know-how, or from. So anyway, end plug.
Okay. Oh, cool. That's
So the third story in this issue, The Man Who Became the Torch, and this is from Strange Tales number 118. Written by Stan Lee, art by Dick Ayers. And it's a Human Torch solo story against a recurring foe of his, the Wizard, who later enlisted several other supervillains in the Frightful Four, and they were kind of the anti-Fantastic Four, and they were recurring Fantastic Four enemies.
The Torch, it's decent. Torch is not a good solo person. I mean, he needs people to
well, yeah, even and the Fantastic Four are have cameo roles in this issue, and I think you're right. The Thing can carry a book, and he's done it. Even though one of his books was a team-up book, so it was just new people, and that's a neat novelty. Marvel 2-in-1 was a great book for that. And his own series, The Thing, ran for quite a while, so that was a good book. But the Torch, they had him in a series of backup stories solo, and it petered out. I think for the reason you bring up, he's cool, but a group dynamic is what you expect from these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of a jerk and
Yeah,
annoying. And I guess the thing is the only person you really like in the Fantastic Four.
yeah.
And
Reed's a bit too straight. He's pretty square.
yeah,
Sue is sympathetic, but
but
the interplay between the four of them, the
mm,
family, is interesting. And the
you,
thing
you,
is very upfront and brash and
you'd want
outspoken.
to hang out with the Thing.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd want to take your homework to
to read.
read, and I don't know, Sue, I don't know what, and you
Go get your nails done. I don't know.
and
Not me, but
and the Torch you'd want to help with the barbecue. It's sort of hang out a little bit, but yeah, the Thing is kind of the coolest character, and then the everyman character.
definitely, definitely.
Um, if nothing else is said about this issue, the very last or next to last page is Doctor Doom masterpiece
Oh, oh,
advertisement, and
oh!
I really would love to see this.
I love house ads, and what Jeff's talking about is another one of Marvel's reprint books was called Marvel Superheroes, and there's an issue just devoted to Doctor Doom. Maybe I'll try and hunt that up for another issue. The story with the wizard and the torch is kind of unremarkable.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
I,
the wizard he got cooler later. Once he got his costume and he's the leader of the Frightful Four, then you care about him.
yeah,
As a solo villain, he's kind of lame.
yeah, not many solo villains really make, and that's why they have henchmen and all this. You have to have them talking to somebody,
Well,
not just
yeah, you have
from
to be.
themselves.
If you're just a mad scientist guy with no henchmen and no costume or anything, you're really boring if you're like the repeated villain. Um, you've got to be a Darkseid or a Doctor Doom to be a guy who's not like a team-oriented villain.
Mm,
Um, but having a team of super henchmen is really
yeah.
great. The Wizard was great when he had the Sandman and Paste Pot Pete
Mm-hmm.
and Madame Medusa. Um,
Paste Pot Pete, I love that.
he's pretty bad. He was another Human Torch villain. It's like a guy with a glue gun, really?
Yeah.
Not one of Kirby's better creations. Although I'm not sure if he was a Kirby one.
Even Noble Homer nodded.
Yeah, 3 times with that quote on this show.
Yeah. And there'll be
I'm
more.
going to keep a running count of that. So let's move on to Avengers number 76. It's written by Roy Thomas, art by the great John Buscema. It's The Blaze of Battle, The Flames of Love. Now, this is the second part of a two-parter we started 2 weeks ago. This is the Avengers versus Archon the Magnificent. He's kidnapped these nuclear physicists, and he's going to get them to nuke the Earth so that in his dimension it'll reignite the rings around his world that will, give them sunlight,
Yeah.
save his Earth.
Mm-hmm. Archon's great, but yeah, here's this guy who lives in apparently the 23rd century or something, and he's wearing a fur bikini bottom. It's just and his army is a bunch of Vikings with lasers, and it's
They
kinda
never split
weird.
the atom on this planet that's otherwise futuristic, but has all these feudal elements to it. It's like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They had all the super science and all the sorcery stuff.
Yeah.
People, no, it's like, give these guys some pants.
Yeah.
But they're too cool for pants.
Okay. Archon's a great character.
Yeah.
Great story arc. I loved it.
And I love that he's making the Scarlet Witch marry him against her will, but she gains a sympathy for him. He sees a nobility in Archon. She feels that she could grow to love him. So it's a really neat story.
Yeah, there's a cameo by Black Widow, and she has an awful outfit.
Her old thing with the cape and the kitty cat glasses type mask.
Yeah.
It's bad. She changed when she was co-starring with Daredevil in his book. That's when her costume was really great.
Okay.
And it's the look that we think of Black Widow in now.
Yeah, it was a nice story, and I like the good ending. And
yeah, surprise! The Avengers go to Archon's world, to rescue the Scarlet Witch. They defeat Archon, who comes to our world, and they find a way to save his planet without destroying ours, and everybody leaves happy. So, but it's a great story. That's a classic Avengers story.
There's also a nice Avengers Hall of Fame in the back.
Oh, a little mini backup feature.
Yeah, I like
Who
that.
was that one? Oh yeah, just a 2-page spread on Iron Man,
Hmm.
and I thought it was cool. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, we have Avengers number 99,
1972. Looks
still
like.
written by Roy Thomas, art by Barry Windsor Smith, and he became a big deal as an artist when he emerged in the 70s. But I'm not crazy about his art,
Neither am I.
especially at this point. Later, he got better when he was working at Valiant in the 90s, but I'm not too keen on this. It's a great issue, despite the ho hum art that I'm just not a fan of. But um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're right. It's
the Roy Thomas written run of the Avengers is a very high watermark for the series, um, and this is cool. It's Hercules. He's got amnesia, and what's happening now?
they're trying to. There's this. Oh goodness. There's this prophecy of something bad's going to happen, and they want to figure out what's going on, so they're trying to get Hercules to remember, and he's not. And then these two demigods come, and then there's this huge battle, and then they got to go to Olympus. So, and
Yeah,
that's the story.
yeah. And there's a flashback interwoven throughout the issue with Hawkeye, who had this follows very closely after the Kree Skrull War, and Hawkeye returned to space or to Earth not with the Avengers. I think they thought he had been killed. And this is when he was Goliath, and he eventually makes his way to Earth, and he teams up with a group of circus performers, and Hercules with amnesia was performing with them, and that's how he kind of made his way back to the Avengers.
I was disappointed with the Skrull Kree War. It was such a. I read about it. They mentioned it, and I said, "Wow!" So I finally get it, and I read about it, and I says, "Huh? Where's the war?" It's not really like I don't know. It's kind of.
I have those issues at home too. Yeah, it's cool, but you're right. The build up about it isn't.
And I heard about this all over the place. Well, how important this is, and this is.
It
Okay,
is,
I was underwhelmed.
and there's a number of notable things that take place during that time, and it's really great because Neil Adams does art during those issues, and it's beautiful. So yeah, the Kree Skrull War, it's an important story.
But,
There's a couple different versions of it. There's a condensed reprinted version that's out, and that's what I have. I want to read the longer.
maybe that's the problem. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Also, the word I found in here was tramostat, which is cool. I think it's a like hooyah.
Oh,
or
Hawkeye
something,
used
yeah.
it to just explain
I'll-
some gizmo and
Yeah,
be.
I like that. But
I thought that was fun.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
it was all right.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked the big brawl with those demigods. It was cool.
I didn't like the demigods. They're kind of boring,
They were.
and the battle was kind of is okay. It could have been better.
Oh, here's a subplot that's going on here that I do want to talk about. The Vision realizes he's in love with the Scarlet Witch,
Yeah.
and Hawkeye thinks he is, and he's PO'd because he thinks the Vision is going to get her or whatever.
Right.
And the Vision kind of fails to help them, the other Avengers, defeat these demigods because Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, got injured, and he stops to care for her, and these guys beat the Avengers basically. And I think they took Hercules back to Olympus, didn't they?
Right, and
Yeah.
so now they got to go to Olympus. They're an
Yeah.
Avenger, so
Yeah.
which
So
sounds like a good time.
yeah, but oh no, I think it'll be great. And it's cool because the Avengers are all PO'd and ready to fight at the end. We're to Olympus, so it's really cool. But I like the soap opera that's going on behind. It's Quicksilver doesn't approve of his sister being in love with an android, and so on.
Silver doesn't approve of anything.
Well, right, he's a jerk, and he's very overprotective of his sister. Those are the things that we see a lot with him.
He's not an entertaining jerk too. I mean, if he goes and goodbye, I'm not going to miss him. He can be a jerk and be entertaining.
Because he's a European, like kind of, he kind of a cold fish. He's not like Hawkeye's a jerk, but he's funny. He's wisecracking. He's making fun of Captain America.
Yeah. Right.
He's unruly.
Mm-hmm.
But Quicksilver is just more of a liability. Like, okay, you're capable, and we're your friends, but you're not good to us. So Anyway, so moving along to Action Comics number 461, written by Cary Bates, with art by Kurt Swan and Tex Blaisdell. The story is Kill Me or Leave Me.
Oh, in 1976, in Bicentennial, that's kind of a theme throughout these. Oh, there's this guy who's allergic to his planet, so they send him to Earth, and now he finds out he's allergic to Superman. So
Let's back up a little bit.
Oh.
This alien, Carb Brack, and his name is a palindrome, if you didn't catch that. It's
I did.
same forward and backwards, yeah.
Oh.
But anyway,
okay.
he's got
I knew
this big
something.
handlebar mustache goofy thing going on. But anyway, he's got superpowers, and everyone on his planet had superpowers. But he was ill.
They're not superpowers.
Well, everyone in his world had comparable to Earth. Okay, if he come on his world, it's no big deal. But here, whoa, superpowers. All right, let me qualify that. But anyway, Carbrak was allergic to everyone on his planet because he was like, whatever, something weird. So he had to come to Earth to be exiled. Well, because somehow he's allergic to Superman, and so he's got to like fight him or try and kill Superman or please for Superman to leave the Earth so that this guy he can live because he'll die. And
Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Not great.
And this goes on for a couple issues.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that Carbrak did though? That trick where he made everyone really like Clark Kent, and then they.
Oh, that was kind of yeah. Like they worship Clark Kent, so everybody was following him, so he couldn't turn into Superman.
Right,
Yeah.
but see, then Carbrak battles him in this park, and all these people see him, Clark Kent, duke it out with this super being, and so they figure out that he's Clark Kent, and then Superman has to use Carbrak's mental encephalo whatever machine to brainwash them to forget.
Yeah.
That's not the first story I've seen where Superman brainwashes the world. It's a vulgar display of power.
Well, it's Superman.
Yeah. But yeah, and this is the whole deal with Carbrak goes on for a while, and it's who cares?
Yeah.
He's powerful, but he's not like a bad guy, and you kind of feel bad for him.
But he's not an interesting character. And
Yeah, the failure of Carbrak is you don't sympathize with him because there's nothing like, wow, but he seems like such a good guy. It's just like, oh, he's just this sick guy and he wants to get rid of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of sucks.
Yeah. There is
The
a.
backup story in that one, The Toughest Newsboy in Town. It's a Perry White solo story. He's telling his grandkids about an adventure he had as a newsboy in the 40s or 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Was that what you were talking about? Or going to?
Oh, yeah. It was a nice Perry White story, and no superpowers. Just Perry White being a kid and taking
he's-
somebody's hind end.
Yeah, he just like sniffed out a mystery and like saved this guy's life. Guy was kidnapped, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was an I love the advertisements in these books. It just takes you back what people are thinking, and it's
Sure.
an important cultural artifact.
Oh no, that's why this is what you miss in trade paperbacks. I mean, a lot of these aren't traded anyway, but
Yeah.
you miss that. You miss the letters column, and you miss these wonderful ads. What ads were you? Was there something you wanted to specifically?
There was
Let's
a
take a look.
Superman ad that was said, "Don't crash parties."
Oh, Justice for All includes children. This was a series of PSA one-pagers that ran throughout DC Comics. Yeah.
Is this I don't remember this being a big problem in the 70s, and people were worried about the coming ice age. They weren't worried about party crashers. I mean, is this
That series of PSAs? There are better ones. There's ones about like a kid running away from his dad, like who's gonna hit him.
Yeah.
And
that's
more
important.
Yeah, some of them are better than others. But there's another one about Superman talking to some kids. They were mad about some vandals that spray painted up some other thing. Anyway,
but I guess they were trying to think of something to say. So,
yeah.
But I just thought crashing parties. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's irritating. It's not. I'm not particularly worried about it.
Yeah, it's not the greatest social ill, if that's what you're saying.
Okay, yeah.
But this story continues in action number 462. Same creative team, and it's the Super War of Independence. And it's more of that whole deal with Carbrak. Now Carbrak is pleading with Superman to leave Earth or something because his disease is accelerating and he's going to die.
The very first page has Superman coming out, crashing through the Superman symbol, and that's just cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that's a
think
neat
I've
little
ever
thing.
seen that ever.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. Yeah, that's just a weird thing they put on the splash page. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the accusatory finger pointing at us. What would you do? And I don't know. What would I do with this guy? I would
It's a weird
take him to the
conundrum.
moon. Can he
Yeah.
die? Or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what you do in a situation with Carbrak. They try to do that, like, do you save the world or do you save Lois? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this doesn't have those kind of stakes because we have emotional investment in Lois. We don't with Carbrak.
Right.
Um,
The flying donut was weird.
Can you want to explain that a little more?
He starts getting sicker and sicker, Carbrock. And he turns in this pink glowing nodules, and his human form then becomes a donut form. And
It's just as ridiculous as it sounds, folks.
yeah, it might even be more ridiculous.
Yeah. Man, these Carrie Bates written stories are really bad.
Yeah, and so what happens? Clark is sent to 1776.
Yeah. Which it's honestly it's like that's like a 2-second resolution because Superman can just fly, break the time barrier and travel time.
Does he know he's Superman though?
Oh, you mean did he lose his memory by traveling back in time?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know.
Oh, that could be it because you remember all those Silver Age stories where he would just fly and break and go through the time barrier, and then he would just go wherever he wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, was there a backup story in that one?
Oh, Crypto
wait.
Doghouse of Solitude. There's a Doghouse of Solitude. I think that's great.
Oh yeah,
I
this is
want
a
a
job for
Doghouse of
Superdog. E. Nelson Bridwell. He wrote a lot of these sillier stories. Kurt Swan and Al Milgrom did the art on that story. I don't remember the whole plot. It was some dog food company wanted Crypto to do a commercial for them.
Yeah, and he helped. If they gave the money to poor dogs, he would. Something.
I think it's weird how they find ways to communicate with Crypto.
Mm-hmm. I like him.
It's
Love
funny.
me some Crypto is what I wrote down here. And there's a fake Superman. I hate fake Superman.
Oh, that's right. There's a bad guy who's just dressed up as a Superman to what was it? They were going to try and scare this guy into get some money out of him or something.
But didn't fool Crypto.
Well, yeah, it's going to smell that it's different. So, but yeah, it's kind of goofy, but
yeah, it's goofy, but that's why we love Crypto.
Yeah. So I don't know how that story with Carbrak resolved itself because I'm missing that issue.
Okay.
So, but we move on to action number 464. Carrie Bates, Kurt Swan, and the story is Superman. I'm going to rerun your life. And
was reruns a big thing then? Because reruns are fairly recent. In the 50s, you didn't have reruns.
I think you had
And then
sweeps in the 70s and stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
They took place, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I know they did, but I'm not sure if it's turned out big then or did the word rerun or something.
I don't know.
So when you see a comic book using a word like that, a lot of times that means it's a big word, culturally.
Oh, we'd say it's a
significant
buzzword at the time. Is that what you mean?
Buzzword, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Superman fights this guy, the purple. What's his name?
Oh God, what is his name?
He's ridiculous. He has this goofy helmet that has some power that's dumb.
Oh goodness.
It's been like a week for me since I've read this story. So.
Yeah, and I just read a couple days ago, and I can't remember. He's
he was totally forgettable villain. But anyway, he's there, and what's the whole schmear with this story?
Oh, all of Superman's, like Batman, they're being reborn, and they have the same plot how they started. Barry Allen turns into the Flash. Batman loses his
that's right. That's the start of this story. It's a three-parter, and I do have all the issues for it, so we will.
Oh, Purple Pile Driver, that's his name.
That's right,
Oh,
and he's
my.
this ridiculous, like, goofy. He's got this thing on the end of his helmet I don't even know what it does. It's dumb
Oh,
though.
it's a magnet, super magnet. Or something.
Oh, because that's helpful.
Yeah.
But
Only,
anyway,
or yeah, it just goes.
he's
through
your
stuff.
run-of-the-mill goofy supervillain,
Yeah.
and Superman's battling this guy throughout the issue. But yeah, it's I think it's his appearance is just to distract Superman or something, so that whatever's causing his super pals, Flash and Batman, to become young can take place.
Yeah,
I think.
I guess. And something's going to happen next issue.
Here's
so.
the thing. This story,
Yeah.
it's crap, but it's a lead-in first part to a much cooler, three-parter thing. So there's a Private Life of Clark Kent backup story. Do you want to talk about this?
I just had an epiphany.
Okay.
Is that the character says it doesn't look much Australian. There's an Australian newsman comes through Metropolis, and
Oh,
he
and
wants to
Morgan
see
Edge
Superman.
gives Clark the job of like showing him around Metropolis. That's right.
But
And
I
he
was
wants to
thinking
see
the
Superman.
guy looks German. I says, oh no, it's supposed to be Austrian.
Oh.
I mean, he looks Austrian.
Okay. Was he Australian or Austrian?
Australian, but I think that he's dressed like an Austrian with a mustache and a hat.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so.
Well, errors in scripts, happen. Yeah, that was a pretty stupid story. I don't remember.
And speaking of stupid.
Oh, we want to move right into.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got. Excuse me. Now this should be good. From what 1966?
Uh-huh.
We've got Batman number 188. The story is The Eraser Who Tried to Rub Out Batman. Robert Kanigher wrote it, art by Sheldon Moldoff. Although credited to Bob Kane, but we know he didn't really do it.
Oh, it's a villain with an eraser on his head. That's it.
And shoes that are pointy like a pencil.
Oh, and a yellow suit.
This is a guy that went to college with Bruce Wayne and flunked out and was all bummed because he didn't get the girl or something, and so he turned to crime.
He made a lot of mistakes or erased a lot of stuff.
And so he's this eraser-themed villain.
Eraser that he goes to crime scenes with the criminals and erases all the evidence is not a bad idea. I'm kind of impressed by that. But
yeah, and so he was like this criminal helper for hire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is a pretty cool idea, actually.
Yeah.
It's a little similar to the other Batman villain, the Killer Moth. He was supposed to be this anti-Batman, and they would, try to help criminals.
Okay.
But Killer Moth was a loser too.
Yeah. Oh, and his name, Lenny Fiasco.
Okay. Yeah. So Lenny, Bruce Wayne's old college chum or whatever, he's turned to the life of crime. Do you want to get it?
Oh, he becomes an eraser and Batman fights him. The end. This is interesting because it's coming out during the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
They mentioned camp.
Yes, they did. And the way Robin talks, he says, holy, whatever, and bad jokes.
Yeah, and there was a biff, bam, sock, zat, spat, splat, pow.
So this is totally in sync with the Batman television series at the time.
Which I think is one of the greatest things ever.
I love the Batman
just saw
show.
One of the Riddler episodes, and fantastic. And you cannot get it on DVD. This is the one thing that I want on DVD, and you cannot get it.
I got it for my girlfriend, bootlegged,
No, I don't want
for
bootleg.
Christmas.
I want all kinds of.
You want special features and interviews and all that
Yes.
stuff? You can't have that, but I can get you a bootleg.
Someday.
Nice. And the bootleg, the quality was really nice, so I can get it for you for like $20. Seriously, you'll live with it for $20. But wasn't there a backup story?
Oh, 10 best dressed corpses.
Yeah, the 10 best dressed corpses in Gotham City, written by John Broome and art by Sheldon Moldoff. Excuse me. Um, yeah, this is a typical kind of bat mystery of the period. Um, these guys are getting bumped off mysteriously, and it turns out the coincidences they're on this Gotham City's 10 best dressed list. Bruce Wayne, of course, was the next on the list and narrowly avoided his own death. And Batman and Robin are out to find the killer.
Yeah, it's okay. Not a bad mystery, you know. Um,
Yeah, and there's a twist, like, okay, the 10 best dressed was just kind of a ringer to throw him off the trail. Unremarkable, but it's an interesting snapshot of the period. Okay, so that's 1966. What I want to mention before we go on to that, there's a fan letter from future comics writer Mike Friedrich in this 60s Batman issue, who fast forward to the next issue we're going to talk about, Batman number 236 from I think it's 1971. Mike Friedrichs writes one of the stories in this issue we talk about next.
oh,
So it's again one of that ongoing theme of the fan letters, and we see them a few years later working in comics.
that's fascinating. I'm not sure there's any other medium that would happen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I would be at a loss to
The,
find that
the
as
only
well.
thing is that The Trouble with Tribbles was written by a Star Trek fan.
The Trouble with Tribbles? Oh,
In
was
Star Trek.
David Gerald wrote it?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then he was a fan. He never read anything before,
right.
apparently.
Because wasn't that season 2 or 3 of Star Trek, isn't it?
Season 2, I think.
Yeah. Um,
And
that's right, because Chekhov and those guys fight the Klingons in that bar, and Chekhov's not in season 1.
right,
Yeah.
but
So,
but that's the only thing I can think of that's even remote. And this happens all the time. It was made fun of in the Simpsons comics.
oh
They
yeah, you
mentioned
mentioned that.
And that's an interesting facet of comics.
This happens a lot in comics we read for the show, actually.
It's yeah, and I'm glad you keep abreast of that.
Yeah, I've missed a couple that I've made note of, and oops, didn't mention on the show, but I try to remember. But anyway, let's talk about this issue. It is Batman number 236, Wail of the Corpse Bride. Frank Robbins wrote this story, art by Irv Novick.
Uh, the no killing thing is on the splash page. Batman doesn't kill.
Right.
2 reasons: to make parents happy, less violence,
Sure.
and to keep the villains around.
Right.
And so if it's a good villain, you want to see the Joker again.
Yeah.
You know,
They killed the Joker in the very first story, but they've always found ways to,
Right.
get him back.
So,
A
oh,
Wail of the Corpse Bride. It's interesting. Bruce is haunted by this ghost of a murdered bride, and is led to kind of try and solve the mystery of her death. And where does it kind of go on from there?
oh, they go to this mansion and they're going to tear it down, and the killer comes there to stop it, and because the body of the bride is in the house.
It's like, wow, that's a good place for a body. No one will ever look in a house.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
let's
don't know. Do they ever have house smashing parties like this?
no, but it seems like it was really weird. Let's back up and kind of get into this. This it's kind of the tearing down of this house is turned into a benefit for like high society. It's a charity thing. So rich folks pay, whatever, and they put on a hard hat and hand you a hammer, and you wreck stuff in this house. When I was in high school, they did things like trash a car with this
Right.
sledgehammer, pay $1 for, some fundraiser. So it's the 70s. There were people did happenings all the time, and people creative in this kind of way. I think it rings true
Okay.
to something that would happen.
Bruce rocks the turtleneck. I guess he's very-
Yeah,
I
Bruce
thought
Wayne
it was
was heavy
something-
on turtlenecks in the 70s.
Yeah. Oh, kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a Scooby Doo factor here. When I was reading this as well, how are they going to explain the ghost? And they don't. They leave it up to you. So,
Right. I think the idea is that was really a ghost, and that the tradition of ghosts, so like they haunt the earth or a place until their business on earth is finished or their killer is brought to justice, and that's kind of what happens here. Batman solves the mystery, which isn't too deep a mystery, but it's okay.
mhm.
It's I enjoyed reading it.
Oh, the house is called Hellbane Manor. No, come on.
I know, it's pretty bad. I will say though, so-so Batman story of the '70s,
Yeah.
miles ahead of a so-so Superman story of the same period.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So,
Not badly drawn.
oh yeah,
Caught my attention. So what's going to happen next? So,
yeah, I liked Irv Novic's art. I mean, he was doing the Flash in the '70s, and I like that stuff. I think he may have done some Justice League as well. But so the backup story, I think the first of two backup stories, is it's a Robin solo story, and this is the one that Mike Friedrich wrote, and art again by Irv Novick. The story is called Rain Fire, and
yeah.
Robin is visiting some
What is
hippie
Rain
commune.
Fire?
I don't know, but anyway, well I don't know.
No.
Robin's visiting this hippie commune, and somebody sets a fire there, and I'll let you go take it from
Yeah.
there.
Shots irrationally rang out. I'm quoting. Do they rationally ring out?
Right, that's
What's
kind of a
going-
weird line.
Yeah, shoots a Luger, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I always notice what kind of weapons they have. They're this commune full of filthy hippies, and they get together and the.
How do you
town-
really feel about him, Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've been to a commune. It was fun.
okay.
So I'm being silly. Nothing against hippies. Wanted to be one when I was a kid. But, I grew up. So, let's see. The townspeople, one of them calls them filthy, disgusting hippies. So, but there's a fire set by the bad guy, and Robin goes to townspeople who don't like the hippies, but they decide to help them anyway, and they fight the fire.
And it kind of brings the community together. Hey, these hippies, they don't think that
Right.
bad. And also Robin catches the arsonist. So it creates this sense of community. It kind of gives you the warm fuzzy at the end.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And as a bonus in this issue, there is a Golden Age reprint. It's called While the City Sleeps, and it's from Detective Comics number 30 from way back in 1945. Written by Gardner Fox, one of the great comics writers of the Golden Age and Silver Age, I believe. And art by Bob Kane, excuse me, and Sheldon Moldoff.
Interesting story. I liked it. Wonder why they didn't mention graveyard shift. Is that a new term? Was that
Maybe it's a term that surfaced later. Yeah.
Yeah, that's talked to my wife about it, and I don't think they would because they use every other word in there for
Right.
late night work. And this is hooray for people who work at night.
Yeah, and it's
work at night.
especially it's a wartime story. People have gone to war, and a lot of people are picking up the slack.
Yeah.
And working at night. And there's a guy, Batman and Robin catch this guy returning his gains from a robbery because he wants to go straight so he can marry his girl. Well, the other criminals that were in league with him found out, and they're like, "We're going to kill you for doing this." And
Hush Hush was the guy's name. Was
Okay.
the leader of the gang.
okay,
Interesting guy. He wants everyone to be quiet. And that's a running gag.
yeah. Well, and I think at this time, like a lot of non-costume Batman villains have that Dick Tracy kind of thing. And of course, this is the '40s, so Chester Gould's creations were probably a big influence, or certainly contemporary enough to be like, oh, doing things like that are cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Batman's trying to protect this guy and also catch these bad guys, and it's cool.
Nicely drawn. There's some really cool framing and lighting. It's really well done. I'm pretty impressed.
Golden Age Batman stuff is pretty great, actually. The stories are better than the Silver Age stuff, where it just kind of got goofy, or just not, or Batman just got so neutered. Why he's not the guy who stalks around in the shadows. He's the leading citizen, cutting ribbons at opening ceremonies and things like that, or giving tours of the Batcave in the '50s, which is lame. But this story's pretty cool.
Yeah. I noticed in the letter someone saying, "I'm tired of relevant stories," and Yeah. I comic books being relevant or trying to be relevant is usually lame, and
Um,
it doesn't age well.
I
And
feel like I will disagree. In They can be lame, they can be very good. When you're trying to be relevant in a pop culture kind of way, yes, always lame because then it's very dated in a bad way. But if it centers around a historical period or an event, and that's kind of like a what's going on in the times, then it's a wonderful time capsule for that period, and I like it.
it,
Um,
it can still be lame, but it'll be interestingly lame. And it's just like
sure,
we're looking at an interesting historical artifact. This is what people thought back
I think
then.
like the
But
relevant stories of the Green Lantern, Green Arrow type things, those were relevant, and I think those are still great stories. It's funny though because in Silver Age fan letters, this is Bronze Age, you get a lot of kids asking for more realistic stories. But what
mm,
they're really saying is they want relevance. They want something that's relatable, and they got it.
yeah.
And well, too much of a good thing can happen, and I think it
Yeah,
happened.
sometimes people ask for something and then they get it and they really don't want it. So,
Yeah.
um, okay.
So moving on, we've got
Shazam.
Shazam #5. Now this is okay. You know, I won't get into the whole history of Captain Marvel and his cease of publication due to copyright infringement against Superman, whatever. But it's the early 70s. DC has acquired the rights to do Captain Marvel stories. But because Marvel Comics has copyrighted the name Captain Marvel, nothing can be titled Captain Marvel. So it's Shazam, which is fine. Shazam is the magic word for the original Captain Marvel. Um, and so we get new Captain Marvel stories.
Yeah, this is first Captain Marvel stories I've ever read. Knew of, well, there's a wonderful Kingdom Come.
Oh, yeah.
And
Alex Ross, Mark
I really
Waid.
love these. I enjoy them immensely, both of these. We have two Shazam stories or comics. Supposedly, he looks like in Kingdom Come, looks like Fred McMurray,
Yeah.
who I despised for decades because he was in My Three Sons, and I hated that.
Was he the father on my series?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
man, what a lame show.
I
But
never saw it. It's before my time, but
yeah, it's no one's time. But it was
sorry.
boring. But he was. I watched Double Indemnity, and he's the lead in that, and he's wonderful. And he's also very good in one of my favorite movies and books, King Mutiny. And
Oh,
so it's like him. I didn't like Captain Marvel before because I thought he was a lame ripoff. Back in the '70s, I was boo.
yeah,
And now it's wow, this is really wonderful stuff. I love it.
yeah.
Um,
Now these stories are really lighthearted, whimsical,
uh,
juvenile kinds of stories. They're
yeah.
not serious,
Mhm.
um, and they're maintaining the tone of the Golden Age Captain Marvel stories.
Are they?
They are.
Okay.
And one of these issues, actually, both of them have Golden Age reprints that we can.
Yeah.
They match up pretty
Yeah,
well.
no, I didn't notice. So okay.
Um,
Actually, yeah, I saw the different times, but
yeah.
yeah, I didn't see much difference.
Now, I like the idea of serious Captain Marvel stories because he's a great character, and I think you could play him silly or straight because he's just awesome, or he's great in any setting. Um, but I feel like when he's been put in serious comics, they play him for laughs rather than he's the serious character and with ridiculous things happening around him. So that's the
Okay.
charm of the old Captain Marvel stories.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about this. The first story in #5 is The Man Who Wasn't. Elliot S. Magan wrote it, art by C.C. Beck, he's like the defining Captain Marvel artist of the Golden Age, and this is '70s stuff. They
Mhm.
brought him back. Um, but yeah, Captain Marvel meets. There's a leprechaun that makes a homeless man invisible.
Yeah.
What was the name of this bum? He had such a great name.
Oh, what was he?
Slip Kelly. Slip
Yeah.
Kelly, hobo, is rifling through some trash, and he meets a leprechaun, and he catches him, and the leprechaun grants him a wish. The leprechaun makes Slip invisible, so he goes and robs stuff. And, well, Captain Marvel stumbles across this invisible burglar, and he must contend with him and with
Yeah.
the leprechaun.
Yeah, you don't want to be invisible. You'll be able to turn invisible,
Yeah,
and be invisible.
all the time?
Yeah,
Lame.
right. Well, not, but it's not lame as a story.
It would suck to
Yeah.
have invisibility like all the time, like that you
Right.
couldn't control.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was well done. Why does Captain Marvel never open his eyes? Or it looks like his eyes are closed all the time.
Maybe he's like serious, like squinting, like you bad guy, you're gonna get a fist in the face right now.
Maybe he has a sight of Homer.
I don't know. I don't know why Captain Marvel kind of looks like he's squinting all the time.
Yeah.
You're right.
And everyone else has big eyes. Huh.
Billy Batson. Well, Billy Batson has like little like Barney Rubble eyes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it's just two black dots are his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the way they chose to interpret Captain Marvel becoming that way.
But it's a delightful story. I like it.
Yeah, I mean it's simple plots. There's really not much to it. He gets the guy to. He catches a leprechaun, turns the guy back visible, and sends a leprechaun on his way.
Yeah.
So there's 3 stories in this issue, and the second one is The World's Toughest Guy. Same creative team, Elliot S. Magan and C.C. Beck.
Two hippie-looking kids. I mean,
Remember, it's
they
the
have
70s. They have the long bowl cut kind of hair. One is very nice. This kid's Sonny. Everyone meets.
Super nice.
Everybody loves Sonny. Everyone who meets Sonny wants to just do things for him. And he's got this jerk-face cousin. What's his name?
Oh, what's his name? Rowdy.
Yeah. Sonny's jerk-face cousin, Rowdy, comes along with he and Billy as they're trying to pick up old newspapers for like a fundraiser to like help charity or something nice. And Rowdy doesn't like it, and it looks like they meet Archie Bunker and Edith
Right.
as just the folks that they happen upon. It's not them, obviously.
Yeah.
But Rowdy gets this book.
It's a magic book.
Right.
And how to start and stop rain, and there you can starting Rampage, enjoying Rampage, stopping Rampage. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so it's like a magic book or something. It tells him how to do the stuff. And
Yeah.
so Rowdy, of course, immediately sets out to be bad. He becomes the toughest kid in the world or something like that.
Right.
And then he starts being a jerk. And Billy's like, hey, that's not okay. And so he turns into Captain Marvel, Shazam, and confronts Rowdy. And Rowdy immediately picks a fight with Captain Marvel and socks him in the face, and nothing doing.
Yeah. Captain Marvel destroys the magic book, and that destroys all their magical powers.
Yeah, and so then Rowdy is returned to normal and basically gets scolded and sent on his way. I know this sounds really crummy, but these are really lovely in the way they're drawn, and they're just really fun little stories.
Yeah, they're nice and innocent, and I think
There's room for that in the world of comics. It's
And-
nice to have that here and
in
there.
the world of anything.
And Captain Marvel is the right hero to present those kind of stories because he's so pure. I mean, he's a kid who becomes a grown-up. It's great. I think it works just right. There's a third story, and this is a Golden Age reprint of Captain Marvel Jr. Fights the Champ. Art by Mac Raboy, who did most of Captain Marvel Jr. stories. And that's from Marvel Family number 25, way back in the
It
40s or
does
50s.
remind me of the classic reprints of. They did the
Classics Illustrated, is that what you're talking about?
Classics Illustrated.
It wasn't a reprint, but it was. But yeah, it was.
That's what I meant to say.
The artistic style definitely looks like those, which were literary adaptations. And of course, Freddie Freeman is very David Copperfield kind of character.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Freddie Freeman, he's this lame, he's got a bum leg newsboy who was granted the power of Captain Marvel by Captain Marvel.
Yeah, which is interesting. Billy Batson is this little kid. He gets to be Captain Marvel. Now we got another kid who becomes
Captain Marvel Jr.
Captain Marvel Jr. And it's, I don't know, a little bit too much maybe. I don't know. Or do we need does Captain Marvel need someone to hang around with? Or
Here's the thing: the Marvel family, with having Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel, again, Batman was made a little more interesting and easier to write by having Robin as a sidekick, by having Alfred. I like the Marvel family, and Captain Marvel Jr.'s stories were the ones that were a little more serious, a little more like for someone, the slightly older comic reader
Hmm.
in the Golden Age. I find that a lot of his stories are some of the best of the Marvel family stuff. He'd go and his arch nemesis was Captain Nazi, who killed his grandfather and made him an orphan. Um, you
That's a
know,
great name.
who
Um,
Captain Nazi?
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah. I loved the way they drew Captain Marvel Jr.
and I
Yeah.
love that he stays a kid. He's still a kid with superpowers,
Yeah.
like a teenager. And I think Freddy is either the same age or
Looks that
older
way.
than Billy.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure.
I don't know if that was really
Yeah.
ever spelled
Okay.
out. I'm
But
not sure.
there's
Anyway,
this
this story.
there's this boxer who's a big jerk and beats up a kid and gets so Captain Marvel Jr. shows him the error of his ways. And
And the guy learns a lesson and becomes a better person.
yeah.
So it's kind of heartwarming. And
Hmm.
I believe it's Mac Raboy. I couldn't find credits for this story, but he did most of Captain Marvel Jr.'s stories of the Golden Age. He was also really well known for his creation, the Green Llama, which was another cool superhero of the time. He was this Buddhist guy. Looks like the Spectre. Basically has almost the same powers as Captain Marvel, and is cool.
But
Um,
yeah, holy moly, it was a nice story though.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got our next issue is Shazam number 15, and it's a 100-page super spectacular. DC did these for a while in the 70s, and boy, you pay 60 cents and you look at all the comics you get.
I love this super spectaculars. Okay, this is the Special Scientists and Inventors issue, 1974.
And the lead story, there's a couple of new stories, and most of them are reprints, but the lead story is,
Our friend Lex Luthor.
yes, Captain Marvel meets Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor travels to Earth S.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
multiverse, where Captain Marvel and the Marvel family are, it's Earth S.
What's the S for?
Shazam.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Um,
and teams up with Mr. Mind, the
Right.
world's wickedest worm.
yeah, that kind of astounded me when I
Were
saw
you
it.
unfamiliar with Mr. Mind?
I had not read Shazam before this.
Oh man.
So this is a whole new thing. Interesting about inventors and scientists. Who's the last inventor can you name? I was trying to think of.
Oh, someone who in real life that invented
Yeah.
anything? Nobody.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know.
Bill Gates didn't invent. He's a businessman. And
Yeah.
Same thing with
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Let's not speak ill of the dead, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing wrong. He made a business that makes wonderful items.
Yeah,
And
but you're
so-
right. We don't think of the inventor, and really, it's like Lex Luthor as an inventor. Well, it's almost secondary to him as now as the business tycoon and manipulator.
Yeah, but it used to be inventors were heroes, and now they're not. And I can't think of the last inventor.
It's very true.
I guess Tesla is a kind of a hero now, but that was back in the.
But it's
30s,
posthumous. I mean,
20s,
like-
30s, yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's really sad about Tesla because you know the story about Bob Kane ripping off Bill Finger. Okay, he's the Bill Finger to Edison's Bob Kane.
Mm.
Edison got all the glory, but really Tesla was the brilliant,
Yeah.
way before his time.
Yeah,
guy.
it's kind of insane too, from what I understand. But but is that the last inventor?
No, I mean people
I mean-
invented things, but
I don't know that.
I think our world travels so things change so rapidly. We don't stop to oh, that guy invented this thing that
Yeah.
changed our lives forever because we're on to the next thing already.
Is Werner von Braun, maybe? Could he be the last inventor?
What did he invent?
Rockets. Yeah.
Oh.
V2 rockets and helped us go to the moon.
Mhm.
So, but that's
I don't know.
It
It seems like now it's nameless. Science
Yeah.
is the inventor and cure all for everything in under that blanket.
yeah, things are being invented, but they're not heroes.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
Okay,
no one
that's a
cares
segue.
about that anymore. They
I
don't
guess
care
not.
how it was made. They just want it.
Hmm.
So, but let's talk about this story.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
I knew you would love this. I knew this episode was going to be special for you, Jeff.
Um,
But
well
Lex
done.
Luthor travels to Earth S and he meets Talkie Tawny, Mr. Talkie Tawny.
Okay.
Do you need me to explain what the deal with him is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, some scientist gave a tiger this elixir that allowed him, that granted him the power of speech. And over time, that formula, chemical, whatever, allowed him to walk upright and whatever, and he became part of the Captain Marvel, kind of family of characters. And he's a fun character. I like Talkie Tawny. He just
Yeah.
has a cameo in this story,
Is
really.
he like a wimpy to Captain Marvel's Popeye, or he
Mm,
seems like a goofball? I mean,
he's a little goofy, but he's a capable individual. He's a friend and confidant of Captain Marvel.
okay,
So I don't really think Tawny is like Wimpy. Wimpy was like a liability to
right.
Popeye.
Mhm.
Tawny, not so much.
Yeah. Oh, but I love this one phrase. Um, Tawny's talking about his suit, and Lex Luthor says, "It's not possible. He can't like that suit."
Right. Never mind, they just met a talking tiger. But anyway, the story is Lex Luthor comes to this world, meets Billy Batson and Captain Marvel, and before he decides to leave, he's going to team up with Mr. Mind to defeat Captain Marvel. And I think the idea was that Mr. Mind was going to reciprocate and come back to Earth 1 and help him defeat Superman. But Mr. Mind reneges on his promise, and
that's one of the most interesting and bizarre villains ever.
yeah, Mr.
Uh,
Mind in the Golden Age, there was a long 20 or plus issue serial, The Monster Society of Evil, and all these murderous villains were gathered, and Mr. Mind was the mysterious villain. You didn't know who he was, but he was the leader. And all these villains were like killing people and stuff, and Captain Marvel and the Marvel family had to try and defeat all these bad guys. Well, in the very end, it's revealed that Mr. Mind was this little earthworm from space.
huh.
And I love he has this radio around his neck that allows him to speak. And
Which is interesting.
yeah,
I mean,
and when you think about it, it's like this deep radio guy voice talking from, I don't know.
yeah.
It's funny.
It's
Denny O'Neil wrote this story, which is awesome.
huh.
Um,
It's
and it's unremarkable. It's dumb, but it's great.
oh yeah.
I mean, Captain Marvel
Thank you.
meeting Lex Luthor is awesome. You could write the worst story in the world, and it's gonna be awesome because those two characters are in the same story together.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's old school Lex, and I like old school Lex.
it's very Silver Age Lex Luthor. It's the prison jumpsuit Lex Luthor, and he's the mad inventor Lex Luthor. It's totally Silver Age Lex.
Yeah.
It's before the power suit. Any version of that where he would put it on and go toe to toe with Superman. It's way before that.
They have a nice trap for Captain Marvel. If he goes into the water, he cannot say Shazam. And so, but the kind of a lame way he gets out of it was with the hammerhead shark. The hammerhead sharks are the bulls of the sea, so he uses his cape and
Right.
and the hammerhead sharks bust through the glass and allows him to escape. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but okay, he had to get out some way. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But it was a great trap, though. I like the trap, but
I've seen that trap. The Joker used that trap, I think, in a story that I recall.
But the trap is because he's underwater. He cannot say his name. He cannot say Shazam.
Well, right. He
And
can't.
just
Billy
kinda-
can't speak the magic word,
Yeah.
so he uses his shirt to break the glass and get out, and then he turns into Captain Marvel and kicks some butt.
Hmm?
Um,
Oh, and there's a cameo by Soups.
one panel cameo. Lex, this is rather than be apprehended by Captain Marvel, he turns the ray that transported him there on himself and goes back to Earth 1 and is immediately caught by Superman. The
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, the adults are back in town.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got a nice page about the inventors, both good and bad. Um,
Of course, Dr. Savannah, who is the reoccurring mad scientist for Captain Marvel. There's several of his stories I think there are
he
mentioned.
makes I would love to read this when he made a Captain Marvel, evil Captain Marvel, or I don't know, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Um,
And
let's.
it looks like him. And he's got a sister. Is Georgia his sister?
Here's the thing. Dr. Thaddeus Bodog Savannah actually has 4 children. There's Savannah Jr. and uh, Georgia Savannah, and the two of them both are evil scientists, and they look like just like their father. And then he has 2 other children, Magnificus and Butia, who are one is like this magnificent bodybuilding looking guy, and Butia, who's this beautiful girl. Um, I want to say they're adopted because,
Hey.
but yeah. Anyway, yeah. Dr. Savannah has this big family. It's like, when did this? First of all, who married this little goblin,
Yeah.
and let alone had 4 children with him?
Hey, must have a lot of money.
Maybe there's a lot
Yeah.
of money in mad science.
Yeah.
Um,
Professor Edgewise gets this dimension, and he's another scientist. I guess he's a good guy. I don't know. But he gets this huge elephant, and it's a great panel of the elephant destroying this building. It's just really well drawn. I'm really
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah, it's just a little two-page spread, kind of
Yeah.
reminiscing on some old
And
Captain Marvel stories.
Dexter knocks, and he makes a robot and kills it, and it comes back as a ghost, a robot ghost. That is an interesting. I don't know.
I love that. Well, you've heard the Ghost in the Machine, that kind of
Yeah.
concept, you know. Um,
Well, he invented it first.
yeah, there you go. So, but we've got a story here. It's Mary Marvel meets the Chameleon Girl, and this comes from Marvel Family number 47, way back in the Golden Age.
Yeah, not bad. Oh, dark hair means you're ugly in this.
1 second.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so there's this girl who she thinks she's dumpy and ugly, and she just wish that oh no, she creates a scientific formula to gain the attributes of a chameleon. But then, and so she can turn into all these beautiful girls, but she can't control it.
Yeah. Well, freckles and dark hair equals ugly.
Apparently,
And she doesn't have a good figure, I guess.
according to
Dumpy
her.
figure.
To her, she
Yeah.
says this.
Yeah.
It's kind of playing to stereotypes and old, kind of gender roles, like, oh, I'm just so dumpy. I wish I was prettier so I could get a man.
Yeah.
Except she has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Not a bad story. The happy ending after all. I guess it goes to prove one very important thing. Whatever you do, be yourself. Says Mary Marvel, who is a kid who becomes a superhero. So
she's Billy Batson's twin sister.
I know. But the irony of someone saying "be yourself" is she could become a superhero.
Right.
And so.
Yeah.
Great story though. I enjoyed it.
So this next one is Savannah's Good Inventions, and this is great. This is from Marvel Family number 50, and art by Pete Costanza. But it's great. Dr. Savannah has created by accident all these wonderful inventions to make the world better, and he's got them hidden. And so Captain Marvel stumbles across this and wants to,
Yeah, and tries to get the good inventions, and Savannah wants to stop him because it would mess up his reputation.
Yeah. I mean,
Goofy fun, and that's great.
This would not work this would be lame if it was anyone but Dr. Savannah. But because he is so stereotypically one-dimensionally like bad through and through, and oh god, I couldn't live with being good, and I think it's just very funny. And anyway, at the end, Captain Marvel ends up bringing those good inventions, some of them, to the world, and so it's good.
Yeah. Next we have this. Okay, I was going to say there's a page of American cities with Captain Marvel visiting them, and apparently Oklahoma City's capital has an oil well next to the capital.
They did a series of those in the 40s that traveling, do a story in this city and maybe it'll boost sales there or that kind of thing. When I was a kid, and I'll just take a minute on this, there was a promotional comic put out to promote this OMSI. It's the Oregon Museum Science and Industry. There's people from all over the world listen to the show and are not going to know what OMSI is.
Okay.
But Um, it's a Anyway. It was this traveling exhibition put on by Dow Chemical Company, that was called Superheroes. And it was just like using comic book superheroes to illustrate science and stuff. And this was a thing that went to this exhibition in Portland.
Right.
Well, there was a promotional comic that came out through Burger King. It was a reprinting one of those traveling Captain Marvel stories. It was Billy Batson visited Portland, Oregon in like 1941, and it's a war era, scrap metal drive is basically the premise of the story. And it was just that was my introduction to Captain Marvel when I was a kid. And although my getting to read Captain Marvel stories have been very scattershot throughout that time, ever since I've loved the character. Even though that story was kind of stupid, I just loved Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of my love for that character, and it was one of those stories. So anyway, we've got, and this story is kind of an epic. It's pretty lengthy. It's the Marvel family battles the king of all time.
Okay.
It's from Marvel Family number 88. It's an early 50s story. And
Zoltan Jabanin.
This time-traveling conqueror.
Well, he's deported. He's just evil conqueror, and they catch him on his planet, and they deport him.
Was he from another planet, or was he from just the future of Earth? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay.
But he travels through time and gathers Roman chariots and Greek warriors and Hannibal's guys, and he's conquering various points in time, which is so funny. This makes me think of, this is the predecessor to Marvel Comics, Kang the Conqueror. One of the great Avengers villains. And this is a very silly story, but Zoltan has these bombs that don't destroy anything, that they make people bad.
Mental ammunition. He has dictator bombs, lie bullets, slavery shells, evilness rays, tyranny cannon, and propaganda rockets.
That's right. So he's going throughout time and bombing people into evilness, and the Marvel family, who are pure and good, they're being thwarted at every turn. They're trying, how do we stop this guy? I think they take a trip to the Rock of Eternity to visit the Wizard, and he gives them some sage advice, and
doesn't work. So then he does it again and again, and I forgot how they solved this. It was a long, interesting story.
Yeah, it was a load of fun. I really liked this story.
I think they made different. They used his own weapons against him and destroyed all of his ships, which really looked cool, by the way.
Yeah, they look like really Flash Gordon-y rocket ships, which makes sense for the period, because, people weren't, mass space travel was and is still kind of not a regular thing.
Yeah, the spaceship is called a Century Crosser.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think because they were traveling time. Yeah. Anyway, they beat Zoltan, but it's a fun story. We've got, the next story is The Incredible Calculator. I'm not going to cite the stories they reprinted. You can get them all in Shazam number 15, rather than spend hundreds of dollars on Golden Age originals. But this story is really funny. This inventor creates a machine that can outthink a human. But wait, it gets complicated from there.
Yeah, and I forgot what happens.
Some mathematician challenges the machine, and the machine predicts that there's going to be bad weather and blah blah. I don't know. There's a stalemate of the intellects. The machine is
the man in the machine.
Yeah. And it's in a way, there's a tiny bit of social commentary here about industrialization and eliminating people's machines replacing human workers, that kind of thing. And I think that was happening, growing, especially in the war years and in the 50s. It's just kind of silly.
Mr. Tony's balancing shoes.
Mr. Takitani invents these rubber shoes that bounce, and hey, they're fun, and becomes this millionaire tycoon. But then after people buy them, it turns out that they bounce too much after you've had them for a while, and so they're all defective, and he's got to send them back and be broke again. And Captain Marvel is in the story.
It's kind of cool. Kind of a thing on Flubber. It's like I'm not sure if Flubber was a ripoff of this or was
Well, this is a story from the 40s or 50s. I'm gonna say Flubber came later.
Flubber came out in the late '50s for the
Well, Captain
Disney.
Marvel had ceased publication by the mid 50s,
I may
so
be totally wrong. I'm not. Oh, I don't know.
to the internet
Yeah,
later.
Later.
What's this story now?
The day the civilization went backwards.
Oh, this is funny. This inventor, he invents this helmet that makes people want to get rid of all their technology and go back to old things, and then he wants to then what was he going to do? Then become a millionaire by selling that stuff back to them when he changed their minds or something?
Yeah, or something. It's kind of stupid, but yeah, it's kind of fun. You think about what what's been invented and what happens.
And what people value.
Mm-hmm.
You know how values change with the new inventions and things.
Not bad for a kid's story.
Yeah. It's pretty good. And Captain Marvel bumps him on the noggin in the end, and he sends him to whatever jail.
And this is a golden age.
Yeah, definitely. So we have another. This is a new story in the 70s, and it's the last story of the issue and the episode. It's a Captain Marvel Jr., and the story is The Man in the Paper Armor. Now this criminal, Freddie Freeman meets this scientist who invents this material this liquid that will turn paper, that can make paper as strong as steel, but just as flexible. This criminal who's on the lam from a robbery is hiding out in the scientist's lab and sees and hears the demonstration of this compound and steals it and builds himself a suit of newspaper to use as armor.
Yeah, and it looks as stupid as you think it would. Yeah, why newspaper? Why didn't he use something else? I don't know.
I think it was because the whole thing was, I think it was just for paper. But it turns out it becomes highly combustible or something like that.
Oh, he pours a lot on it and becomes so heavy it goes to the sidewalk.
Yeah, the bad guy overdoes it.
Oh.
When he's being pursued by Captain Marvel Jr., who he fights to a standstill, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Not bad. Well, but it is okay.
Yeah.
But this was gold, as in wonderfully written and fun comic books, the way they were meant to be.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, these are your first Captain Marvel stories,
Yes,
which
I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Terrific.
I love them. They're great. They're goofy and fun and innocent. I like that. I like other stuff too. I like Mouse.
I think comic books, as a medium, you should be able to have silly stuff. You should be able to have very serious stuff, and you should be able to find the serious and fun combination that works really well in the middle. The medium has all kinds of room, and there's definitely room for this, and I enjoy these stories. They're not I don't think they're as interesting to talk about on the show. They don't make a very good show, but as a read, these are a hoot. They're a blast.
Yeah, they're so goofy, they're impossible to discuss. You feel kind of embarrassed. But I like anything well done, and in movies, I like most genres. The only proviso is that they can't have Robin Williams in it. We're not watching.
Okay.
Robin Williams.
Well, because you're on this subject, and as we wrap up, let's hear Sturgeon's Law, because I know you love it.
Oh. Okay.
Theodore Sturgeon, famed science fiction writer.
Someone came up to him and says, "Don't you know that 95% of all science fiction is crap?" He says, "You're correct, but 95% of everything is crap."
And that's gold. And for the man who, he was good friends with Kurt Vonnegut, and Theodore Sturgeon was the real-life inspiration for Vonnegut's character, Kilgore Trout. And that Sturgeon's Law is totally Kilgore Trout to a T. At least that sentiment and that mentality. So, yay.
Okay.
So
it's a great law. So it's true in everything.
That's true. I mean, yeah, you don't put down any genre or medium, because you know what? If you think it's crap, you just have to dig deeper.
Yeah.
And it's more valuable when you do dig deeper and find the good stuff.
And one of the things I'm still not grown up yet, but just because someone doesn't like what you like, that does not mean they're evil or stupid. They have different taste.
Or they haven't experienced that to the depth that you have.
Or they may not ever like it.
Well,
But
right.
yeah, and
I'm not saying you should try to get people to like things that they don't like and you do.
But as as you're growing up, you do. How can you not like this? And,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
because that seems so important when you're a kid. And you
Yeah.
get older and you're like, whatever.
Uh,
It takes all kinds to make the world go
I
round.
don't, I don't know how old you get until you stop doing that. And part of me gets, why can't you like that? I still do that sometimes.
You
and I
hope
fight.
that people can appreciate things because they're important to you.
Yeah.
But,
Well, people get mad. Just look at the internet.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've learned to just don't even bother with arguing with people on the internet, talking on forums. Forget it. My life is too short to waste on that kind of crap.
Mhm.
This show is the better forum for that.
right.
So
And no one can gainsay us.
that's
Those
right.
are your gods.
Wow.
On the
On that
podcast.
note, I think we will sign off.
All right. Goodbye.
Goodbye.